This video is going to walk through numbers 1 through 10 on our describing data practice using Desmos as our primary calculator for our statistical calculations. Now, be aware with some of the written explanations, I am going to verbally talk about them, but I won't necessarily write them down on the screen. If you want to sort of read through my explanations, take a look at the written solutions that are already posted on Canvas. All right, so we were given a data set. It was in Google Sheets. I've already copied it over to Desmos to save a little bit of time. And you'll notice that I've named my data set A. Just makes it a little easier when working through the calculations. So the first question asks for the mean, the median, and the mode. And all of the mean, the median, I can do pretty easily in Desmos. So if I go functions and then under statistics, you'll notice there's a mean and a median button. But I'm going to do something maybe a little different than what we did in class. So here I can get the mean. The mean is 55.5. Mean 55.5. But instead of doing the median button, I'm just going to already do my 5-number statistics. So I'm going to use the stat because I know my 5-number summary is going to include the median, and so then I don't have to do this more than once. And so I see right there my median is 55. Now, unfortunately, Desmos won't do the mode. So if I want to come up with a mode, I'm actually going to need to go back to Google Sheets. And in Google Sheets, if you type the enter button and then you have to start typing mode, and you'll notice mode multiple pops up. And we want the entire age column. So I'm just going to highlight that column. And notice it says D to D because that's my age column. And I'm going to hit return. And what you'll see is 2 values pop up, 51 and 54, because there are actually 2 numbers that appear the same number of times. And you can sort of see it right here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 51s, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 54s. So those are the most common numbers. So our mode was 51 and 54. Now, when it says explain which measure of center would be the best for the data, this mean and median are pretty darn close. I do notice that the modes are below the mean and median, and the mean's a little higher. So maybe I'd say the median, just because potentially my data is slightly skewed since my mean and median aren't totally lined up. But I think you could also make a strong argument for the mean being the best measure of center just because it's the most common one and we understand it. So, however, if I'm asking specifically, left skewed, right skewed, symmetric, we do know that the mean is greater than the median. And so what that means is my graph probably is slightly tailing off on the high end. Like, there's a little bit of stretched out data over here. And that sort of makes sense because the mode's lower than the mean also. And because of that, we would say that this is slightly right skewed. Since that mean is greater than the median, and I might expect some high outliers in there, at least one. And so using the previous question, do you expect there to be outliers? Probably, and I would expect them on that high end, not the low end. All right, so range. Range is another one that there isn't a calculation I can do. I just need to take the high minus the low. And I notice that I already am given the max and the min in my stats, my 5-number summary. And so I needed to go 78 minus 42 to get my range of 36. So we can see our 5-number summary over in Desmos already, but I'm going to zoom in a little bit more on my Desmos graph because I want to create a box plot. So if I want to create a box plot in Desmos so that I can sort of use it and then sketch it over here, I'm going to go functions, but this time I'm going to scroll down quite a ways, oops, too far, to visualizations, and I'll notice box plot, and I want a box plot for my data set A. I want it to include my outliers. And you might go, oh, but it's not on my screen. So there's this really nifty little magnifying glass here, and if I hit that, oops, if I hit that, it should zoom in pretty close on my box plot. And you can sort of see with the box plot that this is sort of agreeing with our initial assessment that it's probably right skewed. That right-sided tail is significantly, it's almost a full 20 units, and it's as long as the other 3 boxes put together. And so that's a really good sign that this is definitely, most definitely, right skewed. And I would say probably definitely outliers on that high end, just because that tail is the same length as that 75% of the rest of the data. Now, if I want to go back here and sort of interpret my box plot into this sort of sketch here, it doesn't need to be perfect, but keep in mind it does use your 5-number summary. So like the first line would go at 42, your minimum value. Then the next line goes at 51, where quartile 1 is, and then we'd have 55, and then 60, and last but not least 78. And so I can, if I already have a number line, I can get a pretty darn good sketch of my box and whisker plot. So min, max, median, quartile 3, quartile 1, and these are all ages. It's always a good habit to label stuff. And we already sort of talked, noticing that the data is way spread out on that high end, that 75% of the data is spread, is sort of clumped together, and then there's this 25% that's sort of spread. And I do expect there to be outliers.